Okay, good morning, everybody. I am excited. Welcome to your Leadership Huddle. I'm very excited about today's conversation, and Sorel might join us a little bit later. He's wrapping up something, but we'll see. But I am excited about today's conversation because this is a special one, and you really want to share this one around. I think it makes a difference to open up this conversation today in people's lives. And today we're going to be talking about uh, Sorel calls it the April Fools for entrepreneurs. Like when you keep doing the same thing over and over and you're hoping that somebody will tap on your shoulder and says, April Fool, stop it. We all fall for that, right? Everything is fine, or I'm working on it. It becomes the biggest trap for progress. Everything is fine. I'm working on it. It becomes, it really gets in the way of progress in our lives because we want to be positive and we want to hustle. We want to keep going. You can't give up. You can't give up, right? While at the same time, we're not reading some signals, right? And this is very human. We tell ourselves stories to keep going in a particular direction when we know at some point we need to redirect. We need to reinvent ourselves. We need somebody to stop us and say, April Fools, stop doing that. This is something about human beings. So today, we're gonna open that a little bit so that maybe it can help us see where could you be going in a particular direction that is against your your well-being or your strategy or for your business or for your relationship. And also without making yourself wrong for it, without necessarily attacking yourself or attacking others. It's a very human behavior to continue to do the same thing, hoping for a different result. Human beings are really good at making things look good, even when we don't feel okay about it. We do this in business all the time. How is business? Oh, business is doing great. But you haven't seen the numbers for a while. Things are fine, but they're really not fine. Things are moving along, but they're really not moving along. And I'm not saying, and I'm not really not pointing to the that person that every time you ask them how are you, they always say hanging in there and something's wrong. I'm not pointing to that. But I'm pointing to this one thing about human beings that we make things look better when they're not. And that's not wrong, it's human. There's a relationship we care about that we really want it to work. There's that one, and we just really force this relationship and we continue to force it and we continue to force it and we continue to force it. And we sort of become victims of our positive outlook of life when the relationship has already expired, it has lived its course, or the strategy we invest in for so long. You gotta find your story, right? Find your story where the Titanic example of the captain with the biggest ship in the world, with the greatest technology, with the greatest minds on their way to to a rock, right? And it sank the ship. Recently, I'm sure you've seen it. Recently, Mark Zuckerberg um, redirected his mega investment around the metaverse. This guy invested around $80 billion on this virtual world avatars thing. I mean, he was excited. But when you have that kind of money, you can get a lot of people excited. And for a while, the narrative was, we're building the future. This is the next way that human beings are going to communicate. We're not going to go to the park. We're going to go to a metaverse. We're going to go to some virtual universe. And this is where we're going to make friends. And it's going to be like our own video game. Like our life is a video game. We're already playing video games. This is going to be greater. And he kept going at it with that view, but the market didn't respond. The adoption was slow. Investors got nervous. $80 billion later, he pulled back and they refocused on AI. This is a human being thing. And so, you don't have billions of dollars to throw away, right? But you have your own version. We all have our own version of what are we forcing? What am I forcing here? What am I trying to look good to others rather than read the signals? The founder of Uber, his name is Travis Kalanick. I mean, he created an idea that revolutionized transportation. And he kept going at it and kept going at it. But the culture, the internal culture of the organization was so bad, but he kept on going with that kind of style that eventually the investors drove him out of his business. And you could see, you could see yourself there. You create an idea, you're pushing through, you're going through everything you have to go through, and then people start telling you got to shift your style. This is going to kill everything you've built, and you're like, no, 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 I don't care. Look at the results we have, and eventually you get kicked out. But he had the signals, right? There were lawsuits everywhere. He had all the signals. There was an idea, maybe that you guys know a while ago from Adam Newman, WeWork, this big office spaces. It was a very big idea, huge idea. And he made it worldwide. I mean, it is everywhere almost. And he wanted to do this IPO for $47 billion, but he was hiding all the numbers. He didn't have to hide them. He could have been straight about it. He would have had a very successful IPO, a very successful journey. But now he's known as the guy who lied to everybody. The financials didn't match the narrative. There's something about human beings having to look good to others. And we destroy our progress. We destroy our lives when nobody really cares. You could just be honest. Mostly with yourself, right? There's no need to sell an illusion to others. There's no need to sell an illusion to ourselves. There's really no need. But human beings do that. And that is the biggest trap in leadership. When I work with clients, when I have the chance to do that, one of the things that we do is we create this context and we say the biggest barrier to high performance, it's an inherited model for leadership. And we say that inherited model for leadership is guilt and shame. It's guilt and shame. And so, in order for people to avoid guilt and avoid shame, they're willing to attack, defend, and lie. And that is the biggest trap in leadership. So, people lie about their numbers, people lie about how they feel about something, people just kind of find a way to become better at pretending. And that is the biggest trap in leadership. And I say, this is a human being thing. There's always that quiet signals, life is always speaking. It's not always loud, but it's there. The stress, the frustrations, the complaints. but they're like real signals. And one of the things that we do as human beings is we learn to live with them instead of listening. So what I like to open up, it's a little bit of what there's a book I recommend. This is a really good book. It's called Black Box Thinking from Matthew Swade. I think that's his last name. This is a really good book. I highly encourage it. It's one of those books that it takes you to open up your thinking about the hypnosis of hiding things for human beings, of pretending. He gives great examples in almost in every industry. He says human beings don't fail because they make mistakes. We fail because we hide them. And it's a human being thing. You know, as I'm a parent and you are a parent or you have nephews or you have friends or even if you're running a company, one of the things to create the environment to create around you is to have people develop the courage to tell the truth. I mean, you need courage to tell the truth. I mean, it sounds like common sense, right? And it sounds like what people are supposed to do, what that's the right thing to do. Yes, and it's not the human thing to do. I know that sounds like a crazy thing to say. What do you mean? The human thing to do is to lie? Yes! Overwhelming evidence, okay? That the human thing to do is to lie. So as someone who leads others, as you lead a family, as you lead a team, as you lead yourself, one of the things to discover or have a really good conversation is how to develop the courage to tell the truth. How do you create an environment that tells the truth, that there's no guilt, there's no punishment, there's no shame, but there's actually a kind of reward for truth because it's actually against our intuition. It's very interesting. This is the biggest leadership trap. In the book, Black Box Thinking, one of the biggest examples he gives is around aviation. In the aviation industry, when something goes wrong, they study it obsessively. They don't hide the mistakes, they learn from them. You know, this comes from the black box thinking from the planes, right? Which is not a black box anymore. I think it's orange. Or I don't know if it ever was a black box, but it comes from that, from the symbol of that metaphor, black box thinking, which is to go in there and see what really happened and open it up and don't look for guilt. Don't look for who's at fault. Look to learn from what happened. And the example he gives is that before that happened, one of the reasons why one of the plane crashed, and I think he mentioned Korea, was because the co-pilot didn't want to tell the captain that he was going to hit a mountain or some version of that. But the point is that the co-pilot saw it, but he didn't really want to tell the captain because he didn't want to make him feel bad. He didn't want to take his authority away. He didn't want to have him think that, some version of shame. So he didn't tell him anything. And so they crashed and 180 people died. So in the aviation industry, they have it clear. We cannot have that in our industry. We cannot put blame. We cannot do that. Otherwise, people will not tell the truth and we will crash. But there's very few industries like that, or I don't know if there's any other like that. The medical industry talks about having some version of that when they do their case studies about their mistakes, but they're always protecting their back because somebody's going to sue them left and right. So they hide. We protect our image. We defend our decisions. We say things like, well, it's okay. Everything's fine. It's not that bad. We're working on it. And I say it's not because we're bad, but because our identity feels threatened. So, what Matthew says in the book, and something that I have discovered over the years, is that the real problem is not the mistakes we make, because they're unavoidable. It's our relationship with error, our relationship with mistakes. Human beings would rather protect the image that we're right than face the truth that something isn't working. This is where false hope is born. And here's what I think. We don't ignore reality because we're blind. We ignore it because we're seeing it. It will require for us to become someone new. I'll say it again. We don't ignore reality because we're blind. We ignore it because seeing it would require becoming someone new. So what do we do about this, right? So we practice. What do you practice? You practice with your children. Don't accuse them for lying. Don't attack them for lying. That's the human thing to do. Create an environment at home where they can see it for themselves, that there's an urge to do that. At work, create an environment at work where people can find a way to see the reward in finding a way to tell what's working and what's not working. Obviously, you got to make it work with decency, without attacking others, taking full responsibility for the observation. There is a beautiful shift that happens when we don't blame and we take ownership. Because when I take ownership, I can move it. I can do something new. And that needs leadership. That's not intuitive. So that is today's conversation of the Leadership Huddle. I love to hear from some of you. What are you, any comments, any yeah buts? What's opening up for you? Anybody wants to kind of chip in?
Okay, yo, Gio. Hey, it's Maria Sangria.
Hey, Maria.
How you doing?
Very good.
So, I'm loving this conversation, and I'm hearing that, like, when you say take ownership, it makes me really think of really being responsible. And I've got a favorite definition of responsible. It's the willingness to be at the source of the way things are and own freely what's occurring, what's missing, and what's possible. And so I have taken that definition on in life, and it like totally disappears the blame game. I look at myself to see what can I do. And I had a friend recently that was, very mean spirited to me and kept distance. I went over and rang the doorbell after a few days, and I said, "Look, I'm sorry for the role that I played in upsetting you. Are you willing to talk about it?" And I said, "I want to take responsibility for what happened." And do you know, that person apologized. We sat down, we talked it out, and rekindled a friendship. And you know what? If I wouldn't have owned it, it would have never happened, Gio. So I just wanted to share that with everyone because it's really made a difference in my life to take ownership and not play the blame game. So that's what I want to share from my heart to everyone's heart.
I love that. I really love that. And I love how you framed it and how you said it. I really want to take responsibility for my part.
Yep.
That really opens up something for that other person, right? To look for himself or herself. Well, where can I take responsibility for my part? But but it takes something to be the one who initiates it. So I really want to acknowledge that of you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's a very big deal. And what this conversation, I really want to open up for all of us, the opportunity of this conversation is that what you did is not commonly done. And so what I've discovered is that to create an environment where people develop the courage to take responsibility, to tell the truth, is what leadership is about. Because the trap is to think that people should do that without training. The trap is to think that people won't be afraid. I can only imagine, Maria, all the work that you have done on yourself to be able to be the first one to do it.
A
To
lot.
be able, yeah, right? Like a lot. To be able to, disabuse yourself from what we normally call our ego. To be able to put aside your being right about the upset. Like, well, he took it the wrong way, or she took it the wrong way, or I didn't make that mean that, or whatever it is that you were right about, to put it on the side. And that requires training, training at home and
Yep.
training at work. That requires the kind of training that this episode is pointing to. The
Yes, yo,
big,
yo.
yeah, go ahead, Maria.
I was going to say, yes, indeed, and it's like a spiritual practice that I have that I ask myself, what am I willing to give up? And so it is the right to be right. It is being defensive. It is being stubborn, and it takes a lot to be courageous. And I'm committed to being courageous because I really want us to all be. I want us to all get along. So really, I discovered that your view is as valid as mine. And you know what? If the whole world got that, we wouldn't have to go to war anymore, and we could talk it out.
If the world got that, right? So
Yeah. If
I I can't I can speak for myself, right? And this is kind of opening the conversation for all of us. I can speak for myself that I could see how much pain I have endured in my life and the people that I love for pretending that things are okay. And the 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 courage that it takes to muster up my capacity to become someone new so that I ignore what's not working. Another way of saying it is human beings would rather ignore what's not working, would rather tolerate pain, would rather lose $80 billion, would rather go to war, would rather get divorced, would rather lose their children. Human beings would rather do that than become someone new that will stop that train. That's a human being thing. And that's the biggest trap in leadership. So today's episode, it's about seeing for yourself, where can you stop this train? Do you have some version of some area where you're saying it's fine. It's okay. I'm going to tolerate it. Well, that's the way that it is. Where in your life you're saying that, and find a way. to develop the courage to create someone new for yourself, to become somebody new, somebody that stops the train, somebody that does what Maria just shared with us. Take the initiative in this case and say, hey, I want to restore this relationship. Let me take responsibility for my part. Or I want to give it another chance one more time. Why not? Why not? You'll be better because of it, and your family will, and your finances will. Anybody else? Anybody else? Any other comments? Any more yeah buts? Awesome. Well, if that is it, that is it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being part of the Leadership Huddle on Mondays. Thank you for being part of my life, Sorrel, and everybody else. It's always a pleasure and it's an honor to join you on Mondays. We'll see you next week, next Monday at 9 a.m. Bring a friend. And remember the 8 tenets to live a renegade life. The first one is love, love always. Second one, sleep, sleep well, at least 7 hours. Smile, stretch your cheeks, eat more plant-based, get closer to the trees, hug the trees, eat the trees, move every day, move every day, a little bit in the morning, right after you get up and a little bit before lunch or a little bit after lunch, move every day. A little walking will go far, far in your life. Give. Give your jealousy away. Give your resentment away. Give your love away. Give. And have fun. And until new order, enjoy everything, like Maria says. Bye bye, everybody.